Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Christina C. Jones here again, and today I am here to talk to you guys about dialogue. I guess to define dialogue, I am talking about the conversations and the spoken words that happen between your characters or to themselves, if that's what they need to do, that happen within the pages of your book. So I got a lot to say, so let's get right into it. All right, so I get complimented a lot on dialogue. Like, that is one of the most consistent things that I get in reviews. So I kind of think I know what I'm talking about, like a little bit. My largest tip or goal is to make sure that your dialogue sounds like conversation between two real people. Like, the realism of it all is I can't undersell how important it is that the dialogue feels realist. But that has to be broken down, right? What conversation between people sounds like, because you have to have a very good understanding of who your characters are. You need to consider their background, socioeconomic background, what their home life was like, if they had a lot of cousins, or if they were very solitary, or if they went to a private school, very stuffy, very exclusive private school with classicism and stuff like that going on, or were they the popular kid at their public high school? All of that stuff, it all factors. Where are they from regionally? Are they from another country? Is English their second language? All of that stuff matters. What do they do? What is their job? What do they do for hobbies? What is their personality? All of those different quirks and different nuances factor into the way that someone communicates. And those are all things that you should be thinking about when you're writing dialogue. And I don't mean you should be like, that should be in your head every time. I mean that it should be part of your character development process, so that when you approach your dialogue, you are very clear on the person that you're writing. You're clear on who they are, and not even just who they are in general, but even down to who they're presenting as in the moment. Are they in front of their in-laws? Are they at work? Are they talking to their boss? Or are they talking to coworkers? Are they having a wind down with their homegirls? All of that is going to make a difference in the different things and different framing and phrases that are going to make that conversation feel real. It's important to give your characters a clear voice, while also understanding that proximity and accessibility of other regions, like all around the world, not just thinking about the United States, that access has changed from what it used to be due to the emergence and popularity and kind of oversaturation of the internet. Slang usage, for example, just because something originated from a certain place, like this is a very Bay Area thing, or this is a very Louisiana thing, or this is a very African thing, it doesn't mean that it's unrealistic for a character who is not from that place to use it, because the internet has created this mashup. And not even just the internet. Like, if we have a friend who speaks a certain way or says a certain thing all of the time, it's really common that we pick up their nuances, and that we, from having the conversations with them, we say that with them. I remember being back in college, and the whole not you with the Jordans on. Like, I never said that before in my life. And by the time I had been exposed to all these other girls from different, from all over the place, who had all come to this same college, and they were saying it. And so the rest of us, we all picked it up, and we all sounded alike just because of that proximity to each other. And so that's another thing to think of. Not saying that your characters should all sound alike, because they shouldn't. Your characters should have distinctive voices. Just saying that, regional slang and different things like that, I think that it is, how to put this, I think that it's overthinking it. Sometimes I think that it can be overthinking it to worry about, well, he's not from, he's not from here, so he wouldn't say that. Or if that's what's naturally coming to you for him to say, think about what life experiences he may have had or who your character may have been exposed to, that saying, whatever it is, comes naturally to him. Just something to think about. And to that end, do not be afraid to use regional slang, especially if the book is set in that certain place and your character is just like, they're steeped in it, because we pick these things up and we carry them with us to other places. And don't be afraid of using colloquialisms either, like those certain sayings that we grew up with our parents and grandparents saying, or we heard our cousins say it. Just make sure that you are using it correctly. For example, rabbit ass dog. No, rabid dog. I know that it gets parsed through different tongues and it gets relaxed into certain things, but even as we're using colloquialisms and even as we're using certain slang, etc., it is important to make sure that when we're putting these things down in our work, that we're using them correctly so that it doesn't strike the eyes of your reader. It doesn't strike them as a mistake, because it's not a mistake. It's very purposeful. But if we're going to use these things purposefully, then they need to be purposeful and they need to be correct. So if you're going to use those things, if you're going to use those slangs, those sayings, just Google is your friend. Look it up real quick. Make sure that you're spelling it the way that it should be spelled and all of that before you move forward into it. But with that said, be wary of stereotyping your character into like a caricature. It's one thing to have their characterization down pat, not down pat, down pat, and a whole other thing to overdo it to the point that the reader is sick of hearing it. You know what I mean? Like, nobody wants to read Jinkies. Like, whoever wrote Scooby-Doo, you're not them, and nobody wants to hear something like that from your character every 2 words because you're trying to portray that they are quirky or whatever else. You don't want to be so stuck on using those things that it gets to be too much. But if your character is going to have like a signature phrase or something like that, that can really, really work, and it can be quite lovely. Jacinta Howard, in her prototype series in Finding Kennedy, Travis Broussard, he calls her baby doll, and I don't have it to say it to say it the right way, but it's not overdone, and it's very endearing, and it's very memorable, and that is the way that you want that to happen. You don't want it to be like, oh my God, here she is with this Jinkies mess again, because it's grating, and it makes it, and it takes you out of the story. But when it's well placed, when it's well placed, it adds to it instead of taking away from it. And if you're worried, just type it in the little search bar, see how many times you've used it. If you're embarrassed by how many times you've used it, edit them, cut it in half, do something different. But just, again, think about it. Think about balance. Like, it's a great thing for your character to have the signature thing that they're known for, because that's something that readers are going to be able to commiserate about later. But you don't want it to be, man, how many times is she going to say this? You don't want it to be that. So balance. We also want to make sure that we're considering the setting and the timing when we're writing dialogue. Casual conversation should feel different from high intensity situation, should feel different from post-sex, should feel different from, I don't know if this relationship is going to work. Now, there are situations where maybe those two things, or maybe two things are kind of blending together, and there's some whole other nuance that you're going to have to figure out with that. But in any case, you should always think about what is realistic. If a bomb is about to go off next to your character, they're not like, are they really about to detail to the person beside them about how they learned how to defuse an explosive incendiary device in the treacherously hot sands of the Middle East with those nights interspersed between you get the picture. It's a lot. And just no. Cut it out. like stop it. Now, some of that might happen, in the narrative. Hopefully it's going to be better than my example. Don't do that. Make it better than that. But it makes no sense for your character to say that bomb is going off. They dead. Like, who has time? Like, nobody has time for all of that. Keep it realistic. Keep it realistic to what is going on. Think about your character's mental state during certain conversations. Maybe they're flustered and can't articulate themselves well. Show that. Maybe they have a concussion and so they can't remember certain details. They shouldn't remember the certain details of everything that happened. They can't tell you, oh, I got knocked upside the back of the head with a 2x4, but right before I remember he had a beard and dimples, and his haircut looked like it was fresh, and he had a diamond in one ear and a gold stud in his nose, and he had on a FUBU sweatshirt, and that doesn't make any sense. I know you want to give those details and stuff to your story, but that situation does not make sense. Maybe that person remembers, remembers little hints of those things later, but just make sure that you're keeping it realistic. Or they're pissed off and they can't see the other person's point of view, or they're sad, or they're angry, I said pissed off and angry. Look at me being repetitive. But all of it matters. All of it should factor in. I know that the advice in traditional publishing is like, cut the fat and, eliminate the false starts and, cut this out and cut out the adverbs and, it's a lot of cut. But to me, a lot of the dialogue in traditionally published works feels very stiff and stale and very sterile. It doesn't feel real. It doesn't like we can say a lot of words and we can do this emotional manipulation and all of that, but it doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel like actual people talking to each other. And when people open my books, I want the conversations to feel like ones they'd have with their mother, their homegirls, their man, whoever. People don't always jump straight in. They talk around stuff. And to that end, they're not going to detail their traumas and triggers and telekinetic ability and all of that. That's not going to just jump out in one conversation randomly. There's hints and there's nuance and all of these things that go into good, realistic dialogue. And cut out the C-spot run stuff. We know, your grammar rules and all of that, but most people speak using contractions and slang, incorrect grammar, all of that. That is how most people speak. And we know you're smart. We see all your good book learning in the narrative process and all of that. We get it. Your Oxford commas, and we get it. We understand that But let your characters talk like real people. Just remember who the people are. Some people have extensive vocabularies, others don't. So that should be reflected in your work based on who your characters are. Have your characters, conduct themselves, or you conduct them, I guess, accordingly. Some people cuss, others don't. Think about who your character is. I can't recommend enough. Play it in your head. You guys have heard me give this advice in so many other videos, but let it play in your head like a movie. If you can, act it out. Act it out. Speak it aloud, so that you can hear those, so that you can hear the different inflections. Get angry, get upset like the characters, so that you so that you have a better grasp of, am I portraying the emotions that would really be happening right now? That helps you really like kind of cement it, helps you, get, helps you be more just present with whatever conversation you're trying to push through. And it helps you, like, if you're acting this out and you know that your heart is racing, your face is getting hot, your chest is feeling tight because you're getting upset, you're clenching your fist because you're trying to, like, somebody hold me back. Like, think through all of those things and put those things down, because you don't want to create like a talking head situation where you have just the characters, like, it's where it's just dialogue. You're not writing a play or a script. It's fiction. So both of those are fiction, but it's a manuscript, it's a book. So you need narrative between, and the narrative that you're writing in between the dialogue should enhance. We should be able to, it should give us better insight into the character's thoughts and feelings and all of that. You need all of it. You are also going to want to consider, and like really, really consider, that no matter what you do, it is not going to resonate with everyone. This is actually on my mind because I've been getting tagged in certain things. But there is, I guess, fairly well-known bookstagrammer, booktuber, whatever, that read my books and decided she did not like the language that my characters used with each other. She called my work urban, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, which, whatever. And then later, she kind of came for another author, and some other Black book community people chimed in and said, and agreed with her that they didn't feel comfortable putting our work in front of their audiences, etc., because, it's the poor example of Black people and everybody doesn't talk like that, blah, 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 blah. And these same people are hosting like a Black Bookathon or something like that, and they're like positioned as authorities. So, like, for real, like, so those Black women decided that my work wasn't for them because of the Black ass language that I use for my characters. Never mind that the language in my books is very, it's very diverse. It's very all over the place because my characters are very diverse and all over the place. They're all Black, but, not everybody speaks the same as everybody else, which is kind of the point. Not everybody speaks the same as everybody else. And that's something that I really take into me with my work. But the point is that the very same work that they rejected because they, the language is a bad influence or whatever, if you go to those very same books, you'll see over and over and over and over and over. And I, like, no exaggeration, I love that I can see myself here. I love that this sounds like conversations that I have. I love that this sounds like conversations that I might overhear at my family reunion. The same thing that they rejected is the very reason that other people loved it, because it felt real and familiar and relatable for many of them. What if I had taken what those other girls said and decided, well, I'm gonna sanitize and I'm gonna sterilize and I'm gonna do all these things to make my work fit the perfect, proper, whatever aesthetic it is that they're looking for. That wouldn't be real. That wouldn't be me. That wouldn't be my characters. That wouldn't be what I love to do. And so, who cares what they thought? Who cares what they think? Like, I was about to say, but I'm a chill. I'm a chill. The point is that there is always going to be somebody who does not like what you're doing, who doesn't see the vision for it. It doesn't resonate with them, and that's cool. Don't let that stop you from writing authentic, realistic conversations, authentic, realistic characters that look like you, talk like you, and represent what you want to see in the world and what is missing from our characterizations in fiction, I believe. But that's another topic for another day. Anyway, go forth, think about it, but don't overthink it. Don't overwrite it. Just let it flow naturally when you sit down to do, to do your writing. All that other stuff, that should come before. That should be the stuff that's happening with the writing that doesn't happen at your actual keyboard. Go through your characterizations in your head. How would this person speak? Does this person cuss or does this person not cuss? Does this person, did they grow up really steep in Black Baptist culture, and so it's a lot of amens. Just think about these things and then take that, those conclusions, whatever conclusions that you arrive at for your characters, take them forth with you and have a good time. Have a good time, as always. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. Hopefully I was able to give you something helpful or something useful that you can take with you into your fiction writing. And yeah, that's it.